You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz. For great radio, get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
Listening to the Bells of Liberty podcast, where freedom rings and the sassiness stings. Stay tuned for a little bit of sassy freedom. Hello and welcome to the Bells of Liberty on Lanterns Radio Network. Thank you so much for joining us over your weekend. We hope you're all staying cool. I don't know about you guys, but Iowa has been hot and rainy, which means miserable and sticky. No? You guys have
same in Florida.
Pretty much.
Yep.
So I know Sammy and I were talking about the heat a couple days ago, and she said there was commentary that California, which is where she's currently living, as she prepares for her next move, which is why Rocky's been standing in for her, and they were all discussing that they were facing flood-like rains if they didn't do something about climate change right now. You know, in California.
Wait, didn't they just have a drought?
That's what I'm saying. You know, in California where they've been dealing with the drought for, the last 3 months. So it kind of makes you think, or not, if you're, progressive and into climate change.
Oh, my God.
So, yeah, I guess weather is not a word we believe in anymore.
No, clearly.
Anyway, George Soros is not getting a pleasant welcome in his birthplace of Hungary. Apparently, Hungarians have caught on to Mr. Soros' use of his billions to sway and control the tide of politics and social justice, and are using the garlic of campaigning to keep the vampire away. Apparently, now it's unacceptable to cite, support, or otherwise promote research and studies of white heterosexual males, as there's been a system of oppression in the scientific community that needs to be stopped. Never mind the validity of the study or their findings or whatever. We're moving on to Article. Yep, we're moving on to Article 6 of our weekly Constitutorial, and as always, a brand new Ring the Bell. So, Rocky, let's talk George Soros.
Let us talk about George Soros. So, the Trump administration has many other items on their agenda that are just as important as healthcare, if not more so. One of those issues is illegal immigration and improvements to our border security. The problem doesn't have an easy solution, but we can certainly learn a few lessons from Hungary. Back in September 2015, Hungary was one of the many European countries that was ordered by the EU to open their borders and welcome Syrian refugees. The problem is that they are seeing so many people coming in that it felt more like an invasion rather than a charitable effort to provide a safe environment for a certain amount of displaced people. It's gotten to the point that the Hungarian government was seeing numbers of illegal immigrants that they had never seen before, and nothing was being done in order to quell the numbers. To give our listeners an idea, Hungary was only supposed to host about 1,300 migrants, not counting the hundreds of thousands of people who just pass through Hungary to get to a final destination. The number of illegal immigrants in the country has gotten as high as 6,300. Hungary has a population of about 9.8 million people. So this situation has prompted the country's prime minister, his name is Viktor Orban, to enforce its sovereignty and stand up to the EU by investing 700 million euro, which is about $763 million, on a border wall and border agents to help monitor the influx of illegal immigrants that pass through Hungary. This, of course, ruffled many feathers, including those of bajillionaire George Soros, a name that some of our listeners might be familiar with. So George Soros is a Hungarian-born billionaire whose sole purpose in life is to invest and fund organizations that push for social justice causes under the guise of philanthropy. Some of the groups that he's been involved with has been the Center for American Progress, Priorities USA, and even Black Lives Matter. So all of these groups have received his funding or have had Soros as part of their founding members. So, of course, since George Soros is all about open borders, he has supported the idea that there should be at least 1 million immigrants coming in to Europe every year. Soros, of course, being from Hungary, he has a vested interest in Hungary, but being the evil billionaire that we all can imagine he is, he's been funneling money to all sorts of non-government organizations to fight the Hungarian government against any measure to protect itself and its borders. This has now turned into an all-out war of words between the Hungarian Prime Minister and Soros, where the Prime Minister has been working with the Hungarian Parliament to find ways to demand transparency from organizations involved in the immigration issue as a way to determine the origin and the use of funding that these organizations receive. Of course, as you would expect, Soros isn't going to go away quietly into that good night, and he has fired back against the Hungarian Prime Minister, accusing Mr. Orban of being anti-Semitic because he's Jewish. In other words, George Soros is being evil, he's being called out, and Soros is now playing the victim, expecting the Prime Minister to back out. Needless to say, Prime Minister Orban has said that his concerns about illegal immigration are a matter of both financial stability, because immigrants can disrupt Hungary's ability to import and export goods and services, but it's more importantly an issue about national security. Because there hasn't been any vetting of the people coming into the country, and there's clearly been, from what we've seen in the news lately, there's been an increase in terrorist attacks throughout Europe. It appears that close to half of the population of Hungary support and agree with the dignitary that something should be done in order to monitor these people coming into the country. So, of course, wanting to defend your borders is not xenophobic or racist, despite what Mr. Soros may think, and neither it is making sure that the people coming in are who they say they are. It's okay to concern ourselves with the well-being of our citizens first before we decide to take in people from other countries and take care of them as well. Bottom line is, Hungary isn't asking for too much. So perhaps we could borrow some ideas from our Hungarian friends when the time comes for us to evaluate what options we have available regarding our own problems of illegal immigration. So, ladies, what do you think about what's going on in Hungary? Is this something that we can ask our representatives to do, to maybe take a more active role as to what we can do in order to better monitor the illegal immigrant situation?
It's hard to get past this dislike that I have of this man, because he's not a good one. So whenever someone describes him as philanthropic or anything like that, I just want to puke, because it's not that. And I find it funny that he's claiming anti-Semitism when he's not. I mean, yes, he was born into a Jewish family and survived the Holocaust, but the man has openly admitted he is not a practicing Jew. So if you're not a practicing Jew, I don't know that you get to scream anti-Semitism when you're not actually living the life that you're claiming people are judging. So that right there is a clear sign to me that this is not serious. And honestly, can we do that too? Can we just take a page from Hungary and be like, yeah, dude, go, just go? Because I think there's far too much money in politics as it is. So even if we look aside from the fact that it's George Soros, I think there's far too much money that gets to control how politics goes in this country, who wins in this country, and who gets to stay in power in this country. And it's all because someone's willing to put down their millions on a certain horse. And that's just not how politics should work. It should be an honor to serve your country, and you should be able to win on your merits, not just because you've got an extra large bank account. Because how many people have we seen that have been worthy of winning a seat in the House and they haven't, or have been worthy of winning the presidency but they haven't, because they don't have 10 million, 12 million, 20 million in their bank account for their campaign.
Exactly.
Or have that money to back it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just think it needs to be merits only, and whatever campaign money they do get is, just to pay for their travel, and that's pretty much it. As far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, so to me, like, George Soros is the equivalent of like Sean King or Rachel Dolezal, where they are white people claiming to be black, and then when someone says something against whatever their point may be, they instantly come out and they play the race card. So Soros is basically doing the same thing. The guy is not. He was, like Jana said, he was born into a Jewish family, but he's non-practicing. So you can't all of a sudden claim that you're Jewish and ask the Hungarian Jewish population to come to your aid and save me, I'm being attacked, just because someone is calling out the fact that you're evil, and that every time that you've invested money in anything, it's always been to destroy a country. To the point that this is the measure that Hungary has had to take. They've seen you do this time and time again, where you've led these countries down the path of ruin, and they decide to stop you, and all of a sudden you're going to come out screaming that you're being personally attacked because of your faith. That's BS. I call bull.
I gotta wonder too, if he's a non-practicing Jew. I wonder how many deals he has made that has been against his Jewish heritage or, quote unquote, his newfound religion.
Well, according to history, pretty much since the Holocaust, he actually worked with the Nazis to pick people up and take them to the camps. And
I had no idea.
I guess when he was asked how he felt about this, I think all of us, to an extent, might understand someone trying to save their life, doing what they could to stay alive. But as long as there's some remorse there, and he has none. If you ask him, he does not look at that as anything to be remorseful of, because it was simply to save his life. And obviously better people would not have done what he did, but he was also a teenager at the time. So, you can kind of understand he's a kid, he doesn't want to die, okay, he's going to work with the Nazis to try to stay alive, but nowhere in his life since then has he ever expressed any remorse for doing what he did.
Exactly.
So since day one, he's been pretty much non-practicing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, my point is like, he is literally Rocky. He is like Sean King. Like, oh, all of a sudden this is who I am now. So you can't claim this against me, when his entire life he's been the exact opposite of that. So
yeah, I don't believe in it, but I'm going to take all the benefits that come with the title of Jew.
Yeah. And what really annoys me about the whole thing is that Soros has such a wide grasp over the European Union that the EU has threatened Hungary, and I believe it's Poland. It's another one of those countries that have tried to take a stand against illegal immigration in their own countries. And Soros is basically a puppet master. He'll go to these organizations. He'll tell them, this is what I want you to do. This is how I want you to treat these countries, because they don't agree with what I want the country to look like. And he's always been for open borders, that to the point that if any country wants to do anything to improve its situation, they immediately become vilified. And the EU just decides that, well, if you don't do what we tell you, then we're going to push you out of the union and you're basically going to be on your own.
I'm scared to know what his end game is, because Jana, like you said, he does not strike me as a philanthropic person at all. So what is going on behind his reasons for doing all this stuff? It's a little terrifying if you stop and think about it, because I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but it kind of smells like a conspiracy.
Yeah, it kind of is. But we're going to have to leave it at that, because that's all the time we have for this segment. But don't worry, the Bells of Liberty will be back in a moment on the Lanterns Radio Network. we are back with the Bells of Liberty on Lanterns Radio Network. Courtney has an interesting development on her end. Courtney?
Well, apparently now it is, or it should be, not polite, I guess, to cite research studies done by straight white men. This is interesting. So in an article by the Washington Post by Christine Phillips, the title is "Why These Professors Are Warning Against Promoting the Work of Straight White Men." There's a lot of wonderful things to quote from in this article. So geographers Carrie Mott and Danielle Cockayne argued in a recent paper that doing so, citing the white straight male, perpetuates what they call white heterosexual or heteromasculinism, as they defined a system of oppression that benefits only those who are white, male, able-bodied, economically privileged, heterosexual, and cisgendered. There's just so many questions I have just in this first, like how do they know these guys are able-bodied? I would like to know that first of all. The first point here, is this actually a rampant problem in the scientific community? If it is, okay, can the scientific community address that, please? Because I don't have the mental capacity, or even like I'm getting what do they call it? Fatigued. You are forced to care so much that you can't even care anymore. And I really don't think that this seems like a problem that would be better suited for the scientific community to address if only white, male, cisgendered are being cited in the studies. But the thing is if these guys are actually established, then why aren't we coding them? And the article, the point number 2, it says to cite narrowly and to cite white men or to cite established scholars does a disservice not only to the researchers and reciters who are, I don't know what this is, who are othered by white heteromasculinism. I don't know this phrase because I'm old, I guess. But the problem I have with this is, why wouldn't you be citing established scholars? So what I gather from here is that we're supposed to establish people who are untested, who are not tenured, who are not established just because they're not white males. So, that's another issue I have there.
Well, and I have a question. What if the studies that they're doing, or the papers that they're writing, or the findings that they're getting, what if there are no other people really working in that field? What if because the scientific community is vast, and there are lots of things that require questioning and require work on that area. Even some of our worst diseases have very few people working on them. So you're telling me if, let's say, a very rare form of cancer has some kind of scientific study or experimentation or something, and the only people providing this study, research, and findings are white abled men, are we supposed to ignore what they've discovered just because they're not a person of color, or because they're not disabled, or because they are male, or whatever parameters these people decide they need to put on these? We're just supposed to blow that off because that's not fair?
It's immediately disqualified.
Yeah, and that's the other thing about this whole point is this that we're bringing up now is the parameters. Like, how do you quantify citing one person over another? So the only way that you could quantify it is if the two studies are exactly the same with the same parameters and the same results, and you purposefully choose the white male over the black woman.
Well, I'm not a math genius, but how frequent is that going to be?
Right. So yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I have an issue with choosing emotions over logic, especially when you're in a scientific field.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's really, you can tell that I'm a little annoyed with this.
Well, it just doesn't make any sense. It's just infuriating because it's just one more thing. It's just like finding out that people were like, yeah, well, Dunkirk just came out and it's a good movie, but there weren't enough black people in it. What
Yes.
Oh, there weren't enough women. I'm sorry. In World War
Yep.
I/World War II, were there a lot of women that went to war? No. Were there a lot of black people living in the Great Britain area at the time? Probably not. So I mean, I know that's a totally different topic, but it's essentially the same thing. It's like, it's never enough. Even if there's an opportunity, it's not good enough unless you give it precedence over everything else. It's just infuriating.
It's not a different topic though. It's not a different topic, because what it is choosing to take what we have today and to try to push that on the past as a way to assuage our guilt. And that's not how it works. The only way that the past really works as a lesson is if we look at it in all its ugliness and beauty and take something from that and move forward from it. You can't learn a lesson by changing everything, pretending nothing ever happened. And so the facts are the facts. That's just how it is. And if there aren't, and this brings me to my point number 4, if there aren't enough, if only white straight men are being cited, or established tenured people are being cited, I mean, maybe these other people who are getting into the fields, I don't know how the researcher field works. Maybe they should market themselves a little bit. Maybe they should get themselves out there instead of saying, "Oh, I'm not being cited, it's racist." And maybe instead be proactive in getting your work out there. And I don't know what these other guys did. I'm pretty sure not all of them are where they are simply because they're white and straight men. I'm pretty sure that some of them went out there and did some hard work, whatever they have to do to get noticed in their field. And another great quote before I have to end this lovely topic that's just so calming and peaceful. For another quote from these people who are writing against the white males. Today, the field is more diverse, but this diversity is largely represented by earlier career scholars. Okay, sure, because they're more established and have more authority on the subject is what I'm saying. But citing only tenured established scholars means that these voices are ignored, especially when it is well known that today's brutally competitive academic job market continues to privilege white heteromasculinist body. I have a problem with the part that they have a problem with citing only tenured established scholars. Maybe you shouldn't, quote only them, but just the fact that they take issue with the fact that they're tenured and established scholars. Why is that a problem for them? We found this blogger on the street yesterday. We read 4 of her blogs and we're going to cite her research. I mean, why not? I guess.
Exactly. And the funny thing is that these are people that will go around and saying that the science is settled, but they've gotten so ridiculous with their demands on wanting to be so politically correct that unless they're the right color and they're the right gender and they identify as the right gender and whatever boxes they need to check, then it's okay. Then it counts. It counts if you're a purple-haired unicorn, doing a study on, cancer cells. I'm like, I think that I want to trust someone who is established, someone who has been doing this for a very long time, and I don't care about the color of their skin. But much to the points that you were making earlier, it's, there are people of every kind of background doing these research papers, people from other countries, Asian people, brown people, yellow people, red people, any kind of color people, I'm sure, are out there doing the work. Does it really matter what skin color they are or what they identify as in order to accept their findings as something interest and something that we should consider as options?
And who in the real world, I don't know a whole lot of people in the general public who even read research papers. So why do I need to care about this? Because I don't care who's writing these research papers. I really don't. Because when we get the news, it's only a little blurb that's like this little quote from this whole entire body of research that's quoted. We never get an author. I don't know who these people are. And like I said, if this is a genuine, real problem, then this community needs to take care of it themselves. Like they need to say, hey, we should probably see if so-and-so is, established enough to be quoted more often or whatever. So, last little quote here I wanted to leave you with. I just thought this was hilarious. Mott also focuses her research on race and social justice, among other things. She describes herself as a feminist political geographer who's interested in how resistance movements mobilize to fight against state-sponsored violence and marginalization.
Oh, geez, that's a mouthful. Jinx, I was thinking the same thing. It's like, geez, that's a mouthful. Don't we think highly of ourselves?
Yeah, I think they just do that to make themselves sound impressive, but really it's just a bunch of nonsense.
I'm a feminist underwater basket weaving, troll hunting scientist of geography. Sorry, I mean that's just what it sounds like.
It's checking. Yes, but you're absolutely correct. It's making sure that I am telling you these are all of the boxes that I check off. Female, check. I identify as this, check. These are my hobbies, check. I don't like wine with my dinner, check. Man. They're just coming up with all sorts of reason to kind of justify and make themselves seem more important than what they actually are.
And the goalposts are going to change every single time, because if they don't, then they won't be able to stay relevant.
Exactly. All right, ladies. So the time has come for a short break, but stay tuned for more of the Lanterns Radio Network and the Bells of Liberty.
You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz for great radio. Get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Bells of Liberty. Jaina is going to walk us through this week's Constitutorial. Jaina?
All right, so this week we are looking at Article 6 of the Constitution. And the text of Article 6 is as follows. All debts contracted and engagements entered into before the adoption of this Constitution shall be as valid against the United States under this Constitution as under the Confederation. This Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made of, or which shall be made under the authority of the United States, shall be the supreme law of the land. And the judges in every state shall be bound thereby, anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary notwithstanding. The senators and representatives before mentioned, and the members of the several state legislatures, and all executive and judicial officers, both of the United States and of the several states, shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution, but no religious test shall ever be required as qualification to any office or public trust under the United States. So, even though this is one big block of text, it is technically broken down into 3 different clauses. So the first clause, in regards to adopting debts contracted and engagements entered into before the adoption of the Constitution, essentially is talking about any debts and engagements that were adopted prior to the Constitution during the Articles of Confederation are still valid and have the same terms that they had prior to the Constitution being taken on as the law of the land. Clause 2 of Article 6, the Supremacy Clause, this Constitution and the laws of the United States which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States shall be the supreme law of the land, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby, anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary notwithstanding. So essentially that is just saying the Constitution says that any federal laws that are made according to the Constitution are the supreme laws. That means state laws that go against federal laws are not valid. Even state courts must follow federal law before state law. So even though statehood is very important, there's still, if it is a federal law, then state law must follow what that federal law is, and not make determinations just based off of what state law is. So that's why I'm thinking every state has their own, like, let's say, license. So they can set up their own license the way they want to, like your driver's license is set up per state law. However, everyone is required to have one based off of federal law. That's like the most, like, basic, easy one I can think of off the top of my head. So, if in the future, and I sense this coming, if they decide we all have one universal license and that becomes federal law, then all states will have to follow that. Because as it is, when you're trying to get on a plane, if you don't have a license that goes through whatever the current federal law is, then you're not allowed to get on a plane. So that's just what that means. And Clause 3 of Article 6 is oaths. Pretty much all it's saying is that if you are a senator or a representative, if you're the president, or some member of state legislature, so that includes your governors, your House of Representatives at state level, your, what have you, and executive and judicial officers, so judges and people who work in the judicial system, you are given an oath. And you are required to follow that oath, saying that you will support the Constitution, so help you God, even though there is not a religious test that you have to follow. So no, you don't have to be Christian. No, you don't have to be Jewish, what have you. They're not gonna look at you and say you're not Christian-y enough. No, you can't be in the state legislature. So there is no test. And they were very clear about that. So whenever someone throws out that whole separation of church and state, that's what they're talking about. That's not an excuse for you to act like a douche. That's where the separation is. Not, we could never talk about Christianity when we were talking about states and governments and whatever. No, that's not what that means.
That's funny, and this
also
is something
means that the state can't control the church.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also this is something that we can actually tell people on the other side of the aisle whenever, like, the situation that happens a lot when people reference Mike Pence and the fact that he's a Christian. They'll say, if Mike Pence were president, this is going to become, like, we're supposed to become some sort of theocracy because the man is a Christian. It's like, no, there is no religious test. There is no, you don't have to be a Christian in order to run this country. And at this and at the same token, you cannot force people to believe the same thing that you believe, in order for you to assume a position, a political position in this country, whether it's a state or a federal role that you're assuming. So it's good to kind of keep that in your back pocket and remember, someone brings out that nonsense, you can always tell them, no, that's incorrect, and it's in the Constitution, so shove it.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but haven't all the last presidents for since Reagan and beyond claimed some sort of link to Christianity? So why are they all hyped up about Pence? I know it's a little side note.
Oh my God, women will never be able to eat with men that are not their husbands ever again. Even though they just did a poll that says married people agree with him. That you should not be having dinner with someone who is not your spouse. Just saying.
And
unless you want to sleep on the couch, don't do it.
Oh, there'd be more than sleeping on the couch involved. If my husband was like, hey, sweetie, so I need to meet with this person after work hours and go have dinner with her. So I'll see you later. I'll be the hell you will.
And expect the locks to be changed when you get
talking
home.
To her in the morning.
Have a good one.
Yeah.
Enjoy your dinner because it's the last one you'll be having.
Mm-hmm.
I hope she gives you a ride to your new home because it's not going to be scary.
Okay, that's what she said.
Pretty much.
A perfect use of that phrase.
I'm not going to let an opportunity slide by on that one.
Hey.
So I think it's just because nobody likes this administration. They're going to find things that they don't like about it, but they don't like Trump. And to be honest, the way Trump is going, I have a very legitimate concern that we might actually not have a President Trump for very much longer. I'm not saying that there's anything concrete. I'm not saying that we've gone through the trial process and if he's going to be impeached, he's going to be impeached. But the rate he's going, I wouldn't be surprised if it happened. And then surprise, we do have a President Pence. And I think these people are actually panicking a little bit because he might. Yeah. I mean, he's not. We don't know anything about him. I didn't know the man existed until he was running with Trump. So I think progressives are kind of panicking a little bit more than maybe conservatives are, because at least Pence seems to be slightly more conservative than Trump does. But he's still a wild card. You don't know what you're going to get if he ends up by default becoming president because Trump can't stop tweeting or keeps digging holes that he's falling into because he thinks he's untouchable. So I don't know. I think that's why people are like, oh my God, Pence, he's the worst. He's Christian zealots. Oh, he's going to put all LGBT people into camps and like electrocute them and stuff. And no, I don't think so.
That's like one of my favorite people on Twitter and Facebook ever, Bruce Carroll, who's also known as the Gay Patriot. I think he starts every day with "This is day number blah 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 of the Trump administration," and Mike Pence is still not put me in a concentration camp.
Still not electrocuted. So disappointing.
Still not being required to take electrotherapy. Which is like the point.
It borders on the ridiculous of these people sometimes. They're whipping themselves up. They're whipping themselves up into this frenzy that, you're trying to find fault on absolutely everything that Trump does, and that's not to say that Trump may not be blameless in this process, but it's like you're forcing the hand in order for things to happen. It's like you're going to keep wishing and wishing and wishing that Trump leaves office or that Trump is impeached, that it's actually going to happen. And then what are you going to do? So it's just silly. It's a silly exercise. And I just think that they're just being, incredibly stupid.
Obnoxious,
and
absurd.
Just get over it. Just get over it,
I don't know which is the one where they only see what's right in front of your freaking face. Like right there. What's that one?
Nearsighted? I want to say it's nearsighted. I have one of them and I can never get them right.
I just have an astigmatism, so everything is fuzzy.
Yeah.
A little bit.
When your eyeballs are the shapes of footballs, that's kind of what happens. So, just saying.
Exactly.
Everything's a blur. And then your friends are always like, how many fingers am I holding up? It's like, no, I'm not seeing double. Yeah. I just can't see. Right now, it's just a smudge. That's all it is. So I don't know how many fingers you're holding up.
It's like, how about this finger? Can you see this finger?
Rocky's holding up the angry chicken. Or no, not the angry chicken, the angry unicorn.
Angry unicorn.
Finger, sucker.
Okay, well, we've quickly gotten off of topic. That's there isn't an amendment regarding what you can or cannot see when you wear glasses and your friends don't, and they have no idea what they're talking about. So anyway, that's Article 6, everyone, of our latest Constitutorial.
Yes, that is Article 6. And with that, we're going to have to leave it there. And when we return, it's our favorite segment, Ring the Bell. Welcome back to the Bells of Liberty on the Lanterns Radio Network, and it is time to ring the bell. All right, ladies, the numbers are in for our past poll results. The first poll was regarding the story about breastfeeding during sex, and including while interviewing on national television. 9% of you said it's an amazing, wonderful idea. 36% of you said nope, feed the kid privately, and 55% of you said what? Exactly.
9% for wild sex. Oh gosh.
I am. The second story was about the crispy chicken skin ice cream sandwich. The question was, should crispy chicken skin ever be allowed on, in, or anywhere near ice cream?
Only one right answer.
Of you. Well, luckily for us, none of our listeners said yes, delicious. 71% of you said nope, 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 nope. And 29% said that you'd try it. And I'm unfriending all of you on Twitter right now. So take that to the bank. The third poll was regarding the story about Lena Dunham and her dog Lammy. The question was, should Lena Dunham be sent to a rehabilitative shelter for psychotic attention skanks? 44% of you said yes, clearly. 20% of you said obviously. And 36% of you said make sure she has some clothes. Yes, please. We shouldn't subject
There should have been another option, like all of the above.
Yeah. It's like whatever the outcome is, let's just make sure that we don't traumatize the people in that rehabilitative facility any further than they actually are. And then there was a very special edition bonus poll regarding Sammy and her cat scratch fever. So the question is, was the doctor trolling Sammy, or Lord knows what the doctor was thinking? 31% of you said nope, she's probably going to die. 31% of you said he just likes the song, and 38% of you said she's sick. And with that, Courtney, you have the first story. What's going on?
All right. So this story is about a mother who decided that she was not going to shame or health shame her children by letting her child accept an award for perfect attendance. Now, I read the story a little bit, and I kind of see where she's coming from, because she has another child who has cerebral palsy. Mm-hmm. So I understand, like, not wanting to make that other child feel bad. But it was kind of weird, though, because I didn't actually know that, like, real awards were given out for perfect attendance. So that's kind of interesting to me. But she kind of goes off the deep end a little bit. So I can understand being mildly irritated and just say, look, we prefer not to accept this award because you know that I have a child with cerebral palsy, and that seems kind of insensitive to this child who would like to be at school and can't. So I can understand her coming from that perspective. But she kind of went a little further, and she says, can you imagine what kind of atmosphere that would create with people who had days off because of bereavement, mental health problem, or chronic conditions? What on earth are we teaching our kids about value and worth? What are we teaching them about looking out for each other and looking after the sick or disabled in our community? Ma'am, I think you're reading into this just a little bit too far. Mm-hmm. So there's that.
These awards have been these little, they're little participation trophies, depending on the age of the child. I'm sure it's perfectly acceptable to hand in, or hand out a perfect attendance trophy. Lord knows I've gotten those kinds of things at work. I've gotten those at school. It's kind of like when, voted most likely to succeed. It's supposed to be something fun, and it's supposed to make kids feel special, for a little bit. It's not supposed to be an indication of who you're going to be as as a member of society.
Listen, yeah. I was awarded 4 years running most responsible in my high school orchestra, and 11 years later, I am clearly the most responsible person on this planet because I was awarded those 4 years running because my parents still talk about it to this day. So obviously it was accurate.
I stand corrected.
Let them have something that makes them smile, and if you want to make your other kid feel better about whatever, that's fine. And maybe they don't care, and they only care because you've made a big deal out of it. They don't think there's anything to it until mom freaks out about it. Okay, well, maybe there's something to this, and I should be upset about it because mom is. Let it go.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, speaking of pop culture, by show of hands, and I'm probably not going to see any of you raising your hands, but let's go with the exercise anyway. By show of hands, how many of you are Whovians? Then don't look at me because I don't really watch the show, but those of you who already have heard the news, congratulations, you are getting yourself the first female doctor. That's right, the social justice warriors at the BBC, who have been committing themselves to be more diverse in their programming, have decided that it is time to have a strong female lead play the titular character and bring the show into the 21st century. As expected, the decision has garnered both boos and hisses from fans. Those who praise the selection of Jodie Whittaker. She was the star of a show called Broadchurch.
She's an excellent actress too.
I hear that she's really very, very good. But some fans have been saying that it's been a long time coming because the show has been steering the audience to that general direction. Those who oppose the change feel it's a gimmick to make the iconic Time Lord more politically correct. The sad part is that the BBC is now fired back at the detractors, telling them to basically get over it and accept the decision. But wait, there's more. Crazy feminist Anita Sarkeesian, which I'm sure you guys have been waiting with bated breath to hear what Anita has to say about the matter. She took to Twitter to condemn the show, saying big whoop to the decision, and that the show really needs to fix the issue of minority representation by making the doctor a transgendered woman of color.
Because it's never enough.
It's, with these people, you throw one bone in their direction and it's not enough. They want all of the boxes checked or none at all. It's like, what do you want? What do you want? Why don't you just go ahead and tell me what exactly it is that you want? Because it never seems to be enough. So listeners, don't hate me. I don't watch the show. I don't follow it. But wouldn't it have been a better idea to create a completely different show with a strong female lead rather than performing gender reassignment?
Creativity and imagination on the side of people who keep demanding these things. And to be totally honest, I think I've said this before, I think this is simply just an opportunity for them to say they won because they got their way. And it has nothing to do about actually creating strong female characters or strong transgender characters or what have you, because how many of them have offered up these new characters? How many of them have come up with their own stories? No, they want to change what's already been established because they know it's popular and they want to say they won. Now, I haven't been watching the show in the last couple of years because even though I like Peter Capaldi as an actor, I don't like him as the Doctor. So I've kind of lost my interest. Not to mention that Stephen Moffat, also talented, but should probably just focus on Sherlock at this point and leave Doctor Who alone, has really made it kind of hard to watch because he does like to inject a lot of political aspects into the show, and that's not why I watch personally. So I haven't really been focusing on the last couple of seasons. So to me, this isn't really making or breaking it for me. But it is obvious that was what they were going for. They've already changed the main villain. Was a male Time Lord, now is a female Time Lord. They've had lots of opportunities for female characters to kind of take on a Time Lord / strong lead female opportunity. They've done it. So this was clearly going to be the next step. So I think it was pretty obvious. There was just literally no reason to do it other than to be more politically correct. There was no reason to do it. This character's been around for 50 some years. And I don't know why we can't just have an established character. I just don't get it.
It's always been it's a historically male character. I mean, like I said, I don't follow the show, but all of the doctors have been male. It's okay for you to leave that character as male. I know there have been some grumblings about turning James Bond into either a gay man or turning it into a woman. No, it's James Bond. Ian Fleming wrote it as a man, and he was supposed to be a man. So let's just leave it at that. Stop tinkering with these things that are they've always been this way. Don't change it. Don't change it. If you want to have a female spy, then you come up with a different storyline and give it attributes similar to James Bond. Just don't perform gender reassignment surgery on James Bond, because Daniel Craig looks damn fine in a suit. Let's just leave it at that.
Oh my gosh. Yes, then the next is Aston Martin. Oh my gosh.
Jeez.
Okay, calm down, ladies.
Gina, I hear you have a story.
Than human, that is for sure.
Calm me down with a story about dogs.
Okay. Well, because I've had such a fabulous couple of weeks, and yes, that was sarcasm, I decided that my Ring the Belle needed to have more animals, because, as you know, that's my thing. That's my jam, yo. So anyway, a story came out a couple days ago about a gentleman who was out walking his dogs, and one of them noticed that there was a baby deer drowning out in a river, jumped right into the Port Jefferson Harbor in New York, and caught the baby as it was making its way downriver, I guess, and pulled it to safety. Watch the video. I think this is a Great Pyrenees. I'm not positive. It might be a Labrador, but I think it's a Great Pyrenees, and they're known for being very protective of smaller animals. They're used on farms to protect chickens and various other farm animals. So it's not really surprising if it does actually turn out to be a Great Pyrenees. But grabbed this little baby deer, brought it back to shore, and was licking it back to life essentially. And little baby had a bunch of ticks and an eye injury, but is making a complete recovery thanks to Storm, the doggy, who jumped into the river to save his little life. And that just shows me that we don't deserve dogs. They are too pure for this world. They are too good for us. And thankfully God had the sense to send them to us. Otherwise, we'd all be dead, I think.
It is like melt your heart, sweet, and amazing that, you know, a creature feels compelled to help another. And we see stories like these all the time on Facebook, these little videos of like dogs helping other dogs. Like I remember the one of like the dog that was run over, so the little friend dog goes over to help the other one, you know, and it's just amazing. And those Facebook should just have a feed where all they show is dog stories and animal stories.
Well, so hopefully we've ended on a happy note for everybody. I think that's all we have for tonight. If you are interested in joining us for our podcast parties, our shows drop at 6 p.m. on Saturdays. You can join us on Twitter at Bells of Liberty. You can join in and vote on polls that we post for every show, for our Ring the Bell topics. And we do share the results of those, obviously, every show. If you are interested in listening to our show after the fact, or you've missed it for any reason, we are available on Spreaker, SoundCloud, iTunes, and Google Play Music. You can go back to listen to any of our previous shows. And we are also available on Facebook. If you'd like to join us there, we do post our midweek chimes on Wednesdays, our video topics about things that happen during the week that we think we need to talk about sooner rather than later. You can leave some commentary. I know Rocky just posted one this week, so you can go and see what she had to say. That is The Bells of Liberty on Facebook. And I think that's all we've got. So thanks again for joining us tonight, and we will talk to you next week.
Bye.
Au revoir.
Thanks for listening to the Bells of Liberty podcast. Want to listen to more sassy content? All shows are available free on demand on Spreaker, SoundCloud, iTunes, and Google Play Music. Have something to say? You can find us on Twitter at Bells of Liberty, and also on Facebook, www.facebook.com/The Bells of Liberty. And as always, keep calm and ring on.